a lot of these things that we have considered to think of when we think of sex, and when we think of gender, well, when we think of sex, really has nothing to do with what we mean by the definition of sex. So definitely all of the things that you all mentioned are things that we have been meant to think of when we hear the word sex, but the definition of sex is really broken down with, refers to the process of combining and mixing genetic traits, often but not always, resulting in the formation of a person into the male or female type. So, and also male, female, and intersex. Does anyone have any questions about this definition right now? So what that means is that there's not only two types of sex. And when people ask on in these applications what your sex is or what your gender is, they're really mixing up the two, right? They'll say, what is your sex? And they'll put man or woman as option. Or they'll put gender, what's your gender? And they'll put male, female. When really what we're talking about when we talk about sex is being either female, male, or intersex. Now, intersex is when someone is born that's not obviously one of these two things. And that is the decision that is not made by the individual, that is the decision that's made by the medical field, as in doctors. They decide whether you are going to be identified as male or female based on your birth. So like the more PC term would be considered intersex because hermaphrodite makes you think that someone has two genitalia. And intersex really doesn't result in necessarily having your genitalia reflect that you are both male or female or not male or female. Does that make sense? So it has to do with not only internal genitals and external genitals, it also has to do with your chromosomes. The fact that like you just might have, you know, you don't have easily identifiable chromosomes. That isn't X and XY, pretty much. And the majority of intersex, people who are born intersex, is really, you know, like things are like enlarged clitorises or what's considered micro penises. Like it's not necessarily someone having these two genitals, which is what we are raised into believing, but it's really just not having things be identifiable and having the medical field do surgeries to what they would try to consider to correct that. And what we're saying is that it's totally awesome if you're born female, it's totally awesome if you're born male, and it's incredibly great if you're born intersex. It's just proof that there's not only two sexes, which is a twist on what we have been raised into believing. So going back to like sex being something that's determined by the medical professions, and it's referring to your genitalia, your chromosomes, your hormones or chromosomes, it's based on science in a way. And it can only be changed via the medical community. If you are going to change your sex, you can only do that through the medical community. And sometimes it is not explicitly male or female, but can be intersex. Gender, on the other hand, is something that is where you're talking about the social construct of what we make up these things as a society. We make up what the cultural meaning is behind being a man, behind being a woman. What are some things that would go under what does it mean to be a man in our society? So your sex should be the same as your gender. So if you are a man, that means that as a society we think that you should have been born male. But that's what society thinks. Yeah. What are some other things? When someone says be a man, what are they talking about?
Be strong.
Be strong.
Don't cry.
Don't cry. Men have muscles. They have penises. They are what? They are hunters. They bring the food to the table.
They're protectors.
Work hard.
They work hard. They protect. They protect what's theirs.
They protect women.
Protect women.
Discipline. Is that the word?
They're the discipliners. Yeah. So like they have authority.
Yeah.
You were gonna say, or you said something else?
Labor. They do like hard work.
They do the manual labor. They do the hard work. So then, what does it mean to be a woman?
Cook, clean.
Cook, clean, have kids. Be independent.
That's something I think we're
Not really,
supposed to
because they
be
think
about
for
that.
the men, they think they supposed to, like, how people think is like, women are supposed to depend on the men. So it's like, you kind of think about it like, women, you know, people think like,
Well, what are some of the things that women can be in control of, that they do have control over?
the kids.
Their kids, or the house, or the kitchen, right? If she's supposed to cook and clean, then that's what a woman can do.
And a say song what her husband do. Like have a say song what her husband do and what he wanted like as far
So
as
she informs his decision making.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do that like that.
No, you totally did. Anything else? Someone mentioned not crying, so like, shouldn't a woman always be kind of emotional? Really sensitive? Maybe a little dancing? A little
Yeah.
gentle, have some grace? Cause like, when we see women are like really, well, like what does a tomboy mean?
Having like man traits. Being tough, being hard, just doing boy things, getting hurt, have scratches and bruises, lots of scratches.
That sounds like really fun stuff, right? So you don't think women want to be able to do like really fun things, right? But like, so like those things that we all have been naming are what our social ideas are about what it means to be a man or a woman. Have we seen any examples where those things aren't true?
Well, they aren't.
They're not true. When we can say, I mean, for one of the things you said, like men are strong, women are. I mean, by inferring women are weak. Like, have we seen like examples in real life of us either being ourselves or seeing other people in our family not going by what society has meant to be a man or a woman?
Rose of the River.
Huh?
Do you know Rose of the River?
Tell me about it. School me.
I think it was during World War II. I could be wrong. I think I'm wrong. But all the men went away to war, and so the women had to pick up the jobs and like do what the man used to do. And then when the men came back, they were told to go back to the kitchen, but like you know, it's kind of they were the men for a period of time, so they didn't have to be pro woman. Like Scott, you know.
Yeah. So like they ended up doing like really great jobs, like making these airplanes and things like that, and they actually liked doing it too. So yeah, that I mean that is an example throughout history. Would any of you say like your maybe sister or brother or mom or dad or whoever adult or whatever out there that you like care, like do they follow those things either?
My sister.
No.
No?
Not really, not all the time.
Yeah, because so along with this, like the idea that there's only two genders that you can ascribe to is also a lie. There are people who are transgender, and we have a really good definition of what it means to be transgender. Do you wanna anyone read it?
Transgender, a term that describes a person whose identity as masculine or feminine does not match his or her biological sex. It is also an umbrella term that may include transsexuals, cross-dressers, or transvestites, or others who do not fit into the category.
Yes. So going along with that, that means that like someone can have both of these things, or someone can identify as having both of these traits of masculine and feminine qualities, or have neither, which is really just similar to saying as both. So along with your gender, if this is what society is saying to us, but we all know that we don't always go by this, that means that we make some decisions about our gender ourselves. And what is meant by that is our gender identity, right? So the idea that we choose our gender identity. We choose if we're going to be feminine or masculine or neither or both. Because pretty much all of these things don't necessarily go in order. If you are born female, it does not mean that your gender is a woman, and it does not mean that you're feminine.